Howdy, all you delicious people! I am here today to review The Game from 1997, a movie that introduces an extremely dangerous man, all because of a birthday gift. Come on, guys, haven't we gotten to a point where we have to realize just give somebody a gift card? As long as it's from a feasible, common store, like just kind of give them a certain portion of money and just kind of let them just have at it. But we have a film that is to really just build up the paranoia within it, and it gives us just this really great film that I thoroughly enjoyed. We have Nicholas that goes on to meet up with his brother Conrad. I guess this is to be the one thing that he decided to actually do this day because he tries to avoid himself from society in general, even his ex wife, and that is the reason why she left him. So, we would go on to have Nicholas that is to seemingly need a transformation. And when Nicholas is to be handed this card to make his way to this CRS, this consumer recreational service, which when Nicholas is to go on, like, well, what is this? And it's like, well, I can't really explain it to you because you need to figure that out for yourself. And then when Nicholas to go on and find prior members of this certain service, he has to ask them about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, like this is definitely going to go on and change your life, and I'm going to give you some um, Bible verse that you're going to go on and really not know much of." And so, for every time that Nicholas is to try to be like, "What is it? What?" like, what is the game? They're going to be like, yeah, we're not going to go on and help you figure that out. Or because we don't want you to know. Because if anything, we can just kind of keep Taylor making it to have him consistently uh, build up such a paranoia to where we need him to go on and do exactly what he does by the end of the film for him to finally get to this point of becoming this brand new guy. So we have Nicholas going on and getting drugged and losing all of his money and getting shot at, but Nicholas doesn't really care about any of this. He doesn't care about losing his money. He doesn't care about getting shot at. He doesn't care that people are trying to kill him. All he cares about is this woman who had presented in front of him with just wearing a bra, and he's like, I gotta get me a piece of that. All right, I gotta chase after this skirt. And that's all really that Nicholas is to really care about in this entire film, which I kind of find to be hilarious. Regardless of how paranoid he is to be with this woman and how he goes on by the end of by the later half of the film and refines her, it's like, aha! Yeah, we have Nicholas that goes on to still want a piece of that by the end of the film. Of like, hey, can I get your number? Can we go out sometime? Yeah. So absurd, but then again, I'm just like, I guess it makes sense. Because they had really just been a good partnership, bizarrely so well. And sometimes Nicholas had to go on and relied on her. And yeah, so this movie I feel is to be such an interesting transformational movie. It kind of reminds me of like the Bill Murray Scrooge film, or goes on to remind me of like the Dan Aykroyd Eddie Murphy Trading Places movie without the actual Eddie Murphy part or the jokes and laughs. Ha ha ha. and would probably go on and make me want to compare this to like the Total Recall or Arnold or Colin Farrell variations of films with probably a little bit less of the sci-fi, right? But a lot of the action. Also, the original one was done on Mars. I don't think that is to go on and be what is to transpire within this film. Unless you're to think that this guy is to be so crazy that he's on Mars. Uh, so, I would also want to go on and compare this to the Liam Hemsworth, like, I want to say it's a series, but I've also seen it as a movie as well. A movie called The Most Dangerous Game that was done in 2022 with Liam Hemsworth. If you want to go on and try to figure out or find where the heck that thing is, hopefully you will go on and do so, because I really did enjoy it. I would like to hope that it's done as a movie because that would have made a lot more sense. Because if anything, the series was kind of broken up in like 8-minute increments, and that didn't make any sense to me. But so, lastly, I will go on and say that like I want to state that this movie is to be similar to the Jim Carrey film Yes Man, where Jim Carrey goes on and finds an old friend that is to tell him about this yes movement like cult where people go on and say yes to everything, and Jim Carrey's like, I should probably go on and check this thing out because I need to say yes to things. And when he goes on and does that, he gets into a covenant where he has to be forced to say yes to everything, or things are going to get a little bit dicey in his life. And so Jim Carrey's character just says yes to everything, regardless of how suspicious or weird it is. And Jim then goes on and is to get to certain points within this saying yes to everything where it's like, I would have liked to have said no, but like, but then like, is the world going to go on and come crashing down on me because I actually just want to say no to something? And that's where the movie just kind of heads the way it does. So, with all that said, I think it's about that time to just state that this movie was great. I really did enjoy it. Where can you go on and check out said piece of film if you want to go on and try it upon yourself and see if it fits? Well, you can of course go on and if you want to just go through the rental means, I'm sure there's like this to be available on Amazon's and so on and so forth for a couple of bucks. But also, if you want to go on and try and find this movie for absolutely free, find an app called Moopzzi, Moopzzi, and there's a little bit of a trick to go on, or a prank, to go on and get into this. So I think I'll have to go on and explain this, because once you go on and fire this movie up, and it seemingly looks like it's starting to play, it won't. Just because there's a bit of a trick with the servers, and you may need to go on and go into the bottom of the screen where it says source, and you may need to kind of sift through the servers and find the perfect one. The one that I found was called X Prime 720p, and that's the one that I went into. It might have like X Prime like word here and then 720p, but like yeah, but like that's the one that I went into to watch this film. Or otherwise, you might have to kind of just sit through a number of different servers and try to find a one that's perfect, that is in English, that is in blah 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 blah. And if you want to take that time, then by all means, that's the avenue of which that I went into. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into dissecting this entire film, talk through the bits and pieces of it. I think it's a little hard to go on and really want to try to figure out a very fast-paced way of describing said film, because there's so many little minute details within this movie that I feel I'm gonna try as quickly as possible to glaze over. And if you have not seen this film, by all means, yeah, definitely want to go on and check this out. This movie's great. I really enjoyed it. So, Let's pause here. Let's whip out my cast list. Whoever insists to help me go on and run all this movie off, because again, there's a lot of details, a lot of things here and there that dare say are really rather enticing. So, let's get extremely dangerous and make our way into this. Let's pause here and say that it is about that time. Spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time. I'm going to spoil this movie. Let me know in the comments below what is to be your favorite death game. I had gone on a death game movie show, whichever. I had recently, kind of briefly off to the side, rewatched the film The Escape Room, where you get a bunch of people all together and they need to figure out how to solve these rooms and eventually come to find out that they all have a thing connected to them that eventually will have them all have a reason for them doing this escape room thing. And at some point, having these people lose their lives throughout this entire movie, and so on and so forth. So, let me know also what is to be your favorite thing that you've been watching as content recently. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, it does go on to be a comment that does help out the channel, does help out the video, and also just helps me out to know that people go on and do comments. Specifically, if they're actually to go on and be positive for once, that would be a nice change of pace. But every once in a while, it seems like there are positive people, so good for them. But anyways, I think about that time to just pause here and whip this all out, and without a doubt, dissect and describe um, the beats and the 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 storyboard of this all. So let's pause here and let's do that. All right, everybody. You know what? I went on to recently try this pork core power thing that is to be for protein, and in all honesty, like I had like a sensation that it has this like very dark chocolate kind of taste to it, and I was to go on and just be like, like it has kind of a bitter upswing to it. When you go on and just kind of take it in, like so. I don't know if I really liked it. More than likely, I could probably go on and try also the strawberry flavor probably at some point. But yeah, I am to go on and to mostly be taking in some Premier Protein. Those are the kind of the shakes that I go into, and I actually really do enjoy those. So sadly enough, I'm not going to go on and I guess find an alternate source of protein within shakes, but that's too bad. But anyways, I just wanted to just throw that out there as a just bizarre rando thing, because I feel that a lot of times people probably go on and watch this at a certain point and then leave, but they're not getting some bit of information. That's some rando bit of information. I also saw Mike Israetel going on and doing a video where he's kind of at these like fast food joints and gas stations to try and find the best sources for protein and stuff like that. And so that's where I kind of got that from. And I tried that and I was like, yeah, not that good, sadly enough. But if anything, let's go into going into this film. So the beginning of this film has Nicholas's father, which oddly enough, we would come to find that Nicholas's father is actually to be the actor that goes on to do the voice work for Mario. Like, the iconic voice for Mario, when Mario is to finally actually get a voice in video games, that is to be that guy, which I found to be so fascinating within the cast list of this. I'm like, oh yeah, like, he did look familiar. And then when I went through the IMDb, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that guy. And I was like, cool, what a small world. And it's kind of weird that, like, this guy never went on to uh I guess get enough acting roles besides just this one. So we have Nicholas going on in these kind of home videos that they bizarrely roll here. And he's given this like sailboat, and we see these birthday parties, and we see that Nicholas is to be handed this baby. And so Nicholas has these huge, and I mean huge, birthday parties that he is to be the head of the table of, and it seems that he's happy, but really he's probably happy because his parents have probably orchestrated all of this. And with him probably being a rich kid, yeah, I'm sure everybody wants to go um, to see a party with a rich kid. So it's like, yeah, like let's definitely go to this guy's house. And so Nicholas, it also seems in these home bit of videos, is to have gone on to see his own father take his own life via jumping off uh, his own mansion and falling to the ground and dying. So Nicholas has seemingly been a witness to his own father's self-death. So now we get to current day Nicholas. This guy is to be waking up for the day, doesn't have really much planned but to go on and speak to his maid, Ilsa, and kind of do their good mornings and their thank yous and so on and so forth. For Nicholas to go on and make his way out of his lavish mansion, to get into his car, to open his home that has a gate to where he can drive through it. And like it seems that Nicholas, when he makes his way to his home, he really drives or enjoys his drive, making his way back up to his home. To where at some point this whole drive eventually even gets ruined for him. So Nicholas goes on to be making his way to his own building that is named after him. You would think that this guy would go on and be so rich that his own mansion would just be his own building, so he wouldn't have to leave his house. But anyways, so we have Nicholas that makes his way to his own building that has his own name on it, and we would of course go on to have this person that is going on and telling Nicholas of all of these plans that he has no interest in actually being involved in. And we get to a point where the planner person or the secretary person goes, I'm like, well, yeah, I don't even know why I bother telling you all of these things, but you're not because you're not going to go on and be involved in any of them. And so another person walks in is to go on and tell Nicholas about Elizabeth calling him. And at one point, Nicholas is to be told, it's like, well, yeah, it's your ex-wife. And Nicholas is like, well, I know who my ex-wife is. And so Nicholas goes on and tells this woman, hey, just take a message or just kind of get rid of her. So Nicholas goes on and agrees to seemingly the only one thing that he could stand to have a get together with, and it's to be a guy named Seymour Butts. So Nicholas is to be laughing, like, yeah, like I know who exactly this is. Like, yeah, let's go on and let's make a dinner arrangement with Mr. Butts. But if anything, for the way in which that we're gonna put together this dinner, I want my name on the arrangement and not his. So it seems that Nicholas is at least willing to go on and visit Seymour Butts. But also, we come to find that between both Nicholas and who we find out is actually Comrade, who is Seymour Butts, that this seems to be a long running joke that never gets old. So, let me pause here for just a second. So, Mr. Butts, aka Conrad, aka Connie, aka a number of things. So, Conrad springs up from behind Nicholas and takes this spray and sprays into the side of Nicholas's neck and pretends to sneeze. And I was like, man, this has got to be the best way to introduce this character in a very comedic, fun-like way. And like Conrad is to be built up as a guy that is to be mentally unstable, but is to also just be a person that just loves to F with people. So, and we'll find that out through this movie. So, Conrad goes on and is to be talking with Nicholas and is to hand him over his birthday gift, which of course would be this piece of paper that is to tell him about the CRS thing, but he doesn't go into detail about what it is. Conrad goes on and talks about how he was given this free jacket, and Nicholas is to tell Conrad, it's like, well, yeah, and I'm sure they're going to want that back. So, Nicholas goes on to ask Conrad where exactly he had gone on to find out about this CRS thing. And Nicholas states that he had found out about it from an old friend that he had gone on to do coke with in college. And Nicholas is like, well, when did you go to college? And Conrad is like, oh, touche. Like, he never went to college. So, a further and further bit of this dialogue starts to transpire. And they talk about the last time that they had met one another around Mother's funeral, or Mom's funeral. And Conrad decides to light up a cigarette, and Nicholas is like, hey, you can't do that here. And it's even illegal to go on and do so, and so on and so. But Conrad is to be willing to light up a smoke because he does not care. And he's saying F California. So the two of them are still shooting the we of course go on to have Conrad ask Nicholas about Elizabeth, and Nicholas goes on to explain to Conrad how she had left him and went off to marry some other guy, and they're having kids and so on and so forth. And so and then also Conrad is to go on and talk about rehab, and like there's just a lot of stuff that we're just dissecting with all of these people. So but the reason why Conrad had wanted to have this dinner with his brother is because he had kind of just had this snap into his brain about his brother's birthday. And even that, like, Nicholas is to kind of correct Conrad of when his birthday actually is. And so here's where Nicholas goes on and hands him this card, hands him this CRS thing, and it's also kind of funny how Nicholas says it like, well, like, what do I need this for? I already have golf clubs. Because again, like the whole recreational service is to just be like, well, yeah, go on and do a sport or something. So Conrad goes on and tells Nicholas here, call the number, it'll make your life fun. And Nicholas is like, fun? And Conrad is like, well, yeah, you know what that is, right? You've seen other people have it at some point, right? So, and Conrad explains that it's an entertainment service. And so it's like, well, it's an escort service. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, it's profoundly life changing experience. So Conrad tells Nicholas, well, tell me you're going to call. And so we have Nicholas that is going on to be asking Conrad if he's taking his medication, if he's still seeing the shrink, and so on and so forth. And so Conrad's to go on and tell Nicholas, well, hey, like, don't kind of change the subject. It's like, go on and do this thing. Like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So Nicholas is like, okay, I'll call them. So, and they keep just drilling into this. So, by the very last bit of this, Nicholas goes on and states to Conrad, it's like, well, you know, I don't like surprises. And then immediately what follows is that all of these chefs get behind Nicholas and start singing happy birthday. And then Nicholas is like, oh my God. So we have Nicholas that goes on and he gets a phone call from one of his business adventures that is to go on and state that there is a guy named Anison that needs to be driven a stake through his heart, um, because they're bleeding him dry for how this guy is to have certain bits of shares that are to be like pennies on the dollar and so on and so forth. Like, still, it seems that Nicholas is going to go on and have to fire this guy and take care of him, so that way they can kind of get their business to kind of stay alive here. So Anison gets a call from a guy needing to take care of Anison, and Nicholas is like, well, hey, I'll go on and I'll take care of it. So we have Nicholas that is to go on and make his way uh, back to his home. And it seems that there are consistent bits of flashes of Nicholas as a young boy driving his way to his home at certain points. And maybe he just likes to be reminded of those just things as he drives. So Nicholas makes his way back home and kind of converses with Ilsa, his assistant, his maid, his whatever. And the two of them are having a bit of a chat together. And so Nicholas goes on and is to talk to Ilsa about, hey, yeah, like I met up with Conrad the other day. And Ilsa's like, oh, like, well, how is he? And so they kind of just talk about him. And then the two of them kind of give their good nights. And also, like, he mentions how, like, Conrad is to have gotten involved in some self improvement cult or something. Uh, and so Elsa is like, well, just send him my love, I guess. And so the whole conversation starts because Ilsa tells Nicholas that there is to be a meal for him And so Nicholas goes on to make his way to his burger and his cupcake that has a candle lit on it. So happy birthday, Nicholas. So Nicholas goes on and takes this tray and makes his way to his TV. And the interesting aspect about this TV is at some point it's to go on, and here or there, like, tease Nicholas once the game starts. And I thought that was fascinating, but that doesn't happen quite now, as Nicholas to just go on and be watching this television, and this guy is just going on and on about just these stocks and whatever, and this and that and business acquisitions and whatever. So Nicholas is going on, sitting down, and eventually he gets interrupted by Elizabeth calling him so near to midnight. So Nicholas picks up the phone. It's Elizabeth. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, like, Elizabeth, hey, like, you're calling to tell me happy birthday. It's almost 11:40. You almost missed it this year. It's like, well, she tried to call you earlier, but you didn't want to answer the phone. So Elizabeth is to call Nicholas because she really does care, and Elizabeth is to go on and bring up the fact that the reason why she's calling is because she knows that this specific birthday is going to be hard on Nicholas because it's his 48th birthday, and it's the same age as his father when his father had died. And so Nicholas realizing that, it's like, oh yeah, like, dang it. So Nicholas is to go on and just kind of exchange pleasantries and so on and so forth, and state that he had gone on to meet up with his brother, and Elizabeth is like, oh yeah, like, how is Connie? Because I guess that's his nickname. So they go on, and Elizabeth is to also state that she's having a baby coming. She is to have gone on and just done an ultrasound, and Nicholas is like, well, yeah, that's what you've always ever wanted, a nuclear family, and so on and so forth. So we just continue going on and on about this. And so eventually, uh, after Nicholas is to be done with this phone call, eventually he goes back to that piece of paper that talks about the CRS. And so Nicholas is like, if this is really some life changing cult, maybe I should go on and get involved with this also. So we again run back the fact that Nicholas's father is to have died, and how it was to transpire by Nicholas jumping off this mansion, plunging to his death, as Nicholas to see it possibly transpire off in the distance. So we have Nicholas going on into the wrapping up of some business meeting, and he heads out of this business to then make his way into seeing the sign that says CRS, the Consumer Recreation Service. And as this is smack dab into Nicholas' face, telling him, you need this, you need to do this, it seems that Nicholas can no longer ignore this, so he decides to go upon himself to make his way into where this business is to go on and to be run. And when Nicholas immediately goes on and is to be talking to this front desk woman, it seems that she's not really giving him the time of the day because she's also answering phone calls. So we have Nicholas that just goes on and just starts waiting for someone to show up. And eventually, Nicholas goes on to meet with a guy named Feingold, I believe is his name. Or Fiendgold? Not quite sure the pronunciation of this name, but it doesn't really matter because this guy isn't to be hugely enough in this movie for me to care, in my opinion. But so, we have a Mr. Feingold that goes on and shakes hands with Nicholas, and he states that he's the VP engineer of whatever the heck this is, of data analysis, just very generic stuff that is to go on and make no real sense of anything because it has to be vague enough. So we have Nicholas that goes on and explains how he was to have gone on and be given this card. And it seems that Conrad is going to be the one that is be forking over the dough uh, to accommodate, uh, of course, Nicholas being a part of this said game. So we have Feingold that seemingly, and here's the thing that is really important here that we didn't think was important. Feingold had gone on to make a order of a certain Chinese restaurant, and we didn't think anything of it, but come to find out that is to be the exact way that Nicholas is to track this guy down. And when it seems that he cannot go on and be able to uh, get his way back to the CRS, he goes on and finds uh, this exact guy, Feingold, and is to retrace the steps of where Feingold is to have gotten paid for his services. And so Nicholas is to, of course, go on and remake his way back into the CRS and be like, aha! But anyways, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. So Feingold ends up handing Nicholas to, like, hey, can you hold on to this as I grab these items? And so Feingold gets the paperwork ready and is to find out who had given Nicholas this gift, which was Conrad Van Orton. And it seems that they had a separate branch uh, in the UK or something like that. And it seems that this business is to be propping up in a number of different locations, but then also is to probably have a very brief existence as well. So we have Nicholas that is to go on and to find out that his brother's numbers were seemingly outstanding. And so maybe there's going to be a possibility that Nicholas's scores are going to be the same upon this game. And so Feingold has Nicholas be given all of these forms that eventually sound so very personal and so very specific about when you go on and you kind of toss yourself off. Like, do you feel like, do you feel this or that about it? Do you sometimes hurt small animals? That was very weird. Uh, oh, like, do you feel guilty about your self pleasures? Yeah. So we have Feingold that tells Nicholas to review the questions and like just kind of fill this out. And we have Nicholas that goes on and asks Feingold, it's like, well, what is this for? Like, what are you selling here? And Feingold is just like, well, it's a game. And it's like, a game? And it's like, well, it's specifically tailored for each participant. And think of it as a great vacation, except you don't go to it. it comes to you. And it's like, well, what kind of vacation is it? It's like, well, it's different for it's different every time. And so it's like, well, humor me with the specifics of the game. And Feingold sums it up as like, well, whatever is lacking in your life, like that is what the game provides. Like, so it's like, okay, so like if you're to be a person that is to go on and be an a-hole, like this game wants to figure out a way to beat that out of you and make you a better person. Or like if you're to go on and seemingly have a very lackluster life of nothing really going on and you're just not involved in society or whatever, like it wants to get you involved in that, whether you wanted to or not. So, but it is kind of funny how, like Nicholas says, well, there's nothing for me that is lacking. And it feels like he has a guy that has everything. And so the further and further we beat around the bush about this, eventually we go on to have also uh Feingold explain this operation as kind of like a weird book of the month club. Yeah, they keep on trying to explain it without actually explaining it. It's very weird. So Uh, and plus also that this guy can drop out at any time with no further obligations. And supposedly that was the big selling pitch to a lot of people. So we have Feingold that is to go on and have Nicholas be put through a battery of tests that are to go on and be either mental or physical. And Nicholas to go on and ask Feingold, it's like, well, how long is this going to take? And Feingold is like, well, yeah, it's only going to take about another hour or so. And so as Nicholas goes on and is to fill out these questions, and then is to further go on and have this Rorschach test where he ends up having these like one name answers for these things. Like when he sees a woman, it's risky. When he sees a car drive off a cliff, it's whoops, and a number of other things. We have Nicholas who's to go on and have this like hearing test where he kind of goes on and points these fingers for when he is to supposedly hear things. He goes on to this treadmill and does this physical test while he's wearing a tank top. So for how these tests are to seemingly be simple, they take up multiple hours of Nicholas's day, and for every time any question is to be asked from Nicholas, like, well, how much longer is this going to take? Well, another just an hour or 2 hours. And Nicholas says, is like, well, that was said 2 hours ago to me. Like, what are you guys doing? So Nicholas goes into this room where he's to be shown all of these visuals and all of these things. And Nicholas seems to be stuck in this room for so long that he eventually is to start to get very much like annoyed with the fact it's like, well, hey, like what am I even doing in this room? And so he goes on and just kind of waves at the projector like, hey, like is this video done yet? uh so we finally just have Nicholas that leaves the room at some point and then meets up with Feingold. And Feingold ends up telling Nicholas like, well, yeah, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. So Nicholas goes on and says, "Oh no, I love to have spent the whole entire day with you guys," as a joke. So we then have the kind of the seemingly quasi exit review that Nicholas goes on and talk about company requirements and that Nicholas is to go on and be a willing participant in this game, and that all of this will supposedly be dependent on Nicholas's satisfaction of all of this, and they're also talking about the payment plan that, of course, his brother is going to go on and do instead of him, and so the further we go on about this, Feinstein finally goes on and gives Nicholas his paper to sign and tells him to sign in blood, and then he makes the joke and then walks away. So Nicholas goes on and signs this and then makes his way to racquetball. And Nicholas makes it to racquetball and does afterwards. He is playing racquetball within this club. And off in the distance, there are these two men that are seemingly chatting about CRS. And of course, Nicholas goes on and overhears this, and it's just like, like, hey, if these guys have both done this, maybe I can kind of question them and kind of poke the bear and get something out of them. So Nicholas goes on to further make his way to this bar, which he finds these two member guys that he had gone on to overhear them talk about the CRS. And so Nicholas goes on to ask the bartender if there are two different members here, and so he's like, "Well, yeah, they're over there." So Nicholas goes on and interrupts these two, and is to try and go on and explain to them. It's like, "Well, yeah, I overheard you guys talk about CSR," and they're like, "Oh, so are you a new member? Like, are you?" And so the guys turn him. It's like, "Well, like, so have you started the game yet?" And Nicholas is just like, ah. And it's like, oh, so you haven't started the game yet. So we have Nicholas that goes on. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not quite sure yet. Right, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to kind of make it into my plans and so on and so forth. And so Nicholas goes on and asks this guy, says, well, like, what is it? Like, what is this game? And the two guys turn to Nicholas and like, well, yeah, that's like the eternal question of what this game actually is. And the guys look at Nicholas and like, you know what, I envy you. Like I wish I could go back and do it for the first time all over again. Um, and so they tip the glass to new experiences, and so one of them goes on and leaves. So with one guy leaving, we have Nicholas that turns to the guy that's left. It's like, well, like anything that you can go on and really just give me about this. And the guy goes on and is to say John chapter 0, verse 25. And Nicholas is like, well, I'm not very familiar with Sunday school. It's been a while. So we have this guy that turns to Nicholas and quotes the words, uh, whereas once I was blind, now I can see. And the guy walks off and says, good night, Nicholas. And so Nicholas replies with good night. So the following day, Nicholas goes on and is to take this bit of paperwork and toss it on this big, huge table. And so after this whole business meeting, Nicholas is to seemingly get a call from the CRS that he has gone on to have gotten rejected by this whole thing. So this guy had gone on to spend hours to be involved in this, but it was kind of like the immediate, like, we need to take this guy off as much as we can. So this is just the starting off of making him upset. And like, regardless of him getting rejected or not, like, he'll still go on and still do this regardless. So we have then Nicholas that gets in his car. He makes his way back to his house. He would, of course, go on and call Conrad and tell his brother, yeah, about that whole CRS thing. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go on and be able to fit it in my schedule. So, I guess I'm not going to go on and accept your birthday gift. Because also he was rejected by it anyways. So, as Nicholas makes his way back to his drive to make his way back home, something unusual happens this time around, where Nicholas is to go on and be met by a dead body, which he seems at first is to be in front of his home. So, Nicholas goes on and finds that this body is to be fairly similar to the way that his father's dead body had been placed. So, Nicholas overturns this said dead body to find out that it's just some wooden dummy. And so Nicholas grabs said wooden dummy, and I'd be like, dude, I would not have gone on and put that in my house, but okay, whatever. Like Nicholas doesn't exactly know who had played this bit of thing on him. And so Nicholas drags this wooden dummy into his house and then comes to find that coming from out of this wooden clown's mouth is to be this key that eventually Nicholas takes with him because he feels that this key will unlock something at some point. So here's where Nicholas goes on and has this clown within this room, and Nicholas goes about his usual night having a bit of food and watching his favorite stock market TV show. So Nicholas goes on to start looking at this clown and is just continuing to inspect it. And then every once in a while there's to be a moment, and this kind of reminds me of like the show American Gods, that just continues to take a main character and tries to completely F with him, which I thought was just rather interesting how that show all played out. When you go on and you just have the main character that goes through a room and has the room all filled up with just photos of somebody else's just manhood, let's just say. Just photos and photos of manhood, and to where like this guy has to be shoved these photos within his face, and it's just like, what the is this? What kind of show is this? But then also like the continuing of effery that kind of goes on throughout that show. We're just like, okay, so this is just how the show is. It's just to mess with you. It's just to mess with your brain, and just kind of make you feel uneasy while watching it. You're like, okay, well, what is really going on? How is this all going to transpire, and so on and so forth, for our main character. So, as Nicholas continues to poke a butter knife into this clown, we have at some point where the TV interjects Nicholas here to say, like, are you really gonna go on and continue to mess with that clown for the whole night? And that is, of course, where Nicholas just kind of jumps up of like, what is this? So the person on the TV screen just starts talking to him, and Nicholas cannot quite understand exactly how that this TV screen is to seemingly be knowing what all is going on. And so we come to find out as this guy explains that there is a tiny camera within some part of Nicholas's house. And so they end up also showing exactly this camera upon his TV screen. And then all of a sudden, Ilsa interrupts what Nicholas is doing, and then like the TV screen goes back to normal. And so Ilsa is to go on and be like, "Oh well, like is everything all right?" And then Nicholas is like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, it's fine." And then Ilsa leaves. So as soon as Ilsa leaves, they kind of go right back to the guy talking to Nicholas. So they go on and they show Nicholas that there's a camera in his room. So Nicholas starts to make his way through the room, and the guy goes on and tells him cold, cold, hot, warm, whatever. So Nicholas figures out that the only thing that has been introduced into his home is the clown, and the clown has a camera within its eye. So the guy on the telly goes on to give Nicholas this 24-hour consumer recreational service hotline and tells him to call it. And tells him to don't call asking what the objective of the game is. Uh, he'll figure that out eventually once he continues to go through the game. And congratulates him on going on and choosing CRS. So, and then the TV goes back to normal. So Nicholas goes on and decides to kind of close his doors for the day, set his alarm for his house, and then the following day goes on to make his way through this airport. I say with a question. And so Nicholas goes through this airport and he's to just kind of look around at everybody, start sizing them up, start to question, like, well, hey, are they part of the game? Are they not part of it? Like, we have a guy that is to be a pilot that is to be answering this phone call, and the pilot is to be supposedly having a phone call that obviously he's not calling anybody. So that seems kind of suspicious. And also, Nicholas goes on to find like a rando person who's just speaking sign language to another person. So Nicholas goes on and sits at this airport, and oddly, as this person kind of lifts off from the seat and sees this newspaper and sees this rat of all things, Nicholas goes on and sees this rattle that looks fairly familiar because it's a clown rattle. Nicholas looks into it, and all of a sudden, this woman comes from out of nowhere, grabs the rattle to give to her baby. It's like, oh, okay, all right. Well, I guess that's what that was. So Nicholas goes on to see a man looking back at him off the distance, and Nicholas asks the guy, "It's like, may I help you?" I would have just been like, do I know you from somewhere? So we have the man who is staring at Nicholas, and he is to just go on and point down to have Nicholas find out that his dress shirt is to be having a little bit more blue in it than usual. As if we're going on and watching Shaun of the Dead here. Hey, you got a little red on you. So, Nicholas comes to find out that his dress shirt is to have a pen that exploded. And so, Nicholas goes to the bathroom and is to try to, as best as he can, clean his dress shirt off. But it is kind of really funny how we go on to realize no matter how many times that Nicholas has different dress shirts, his dress shirts will go on and get ruined regardless. So it's kind of funny how that happens. So Nicholas is in the bathroom and a guy really wants some TP. He really wants some toilet paper. So this guy brings his hand out to go on to ask Nicholas to hand him some toilet paper from the other stall because this guy notices that Nicholas is there. So Nicholas goes on and completely ignores this guy and walks off. And so Nicholas at some point meets with one of his business associates named Sam. So Sam goes on and wishes Nicholas the best of luck and also is to go on and notice his shirt. Like, well, whatever. So Nicholas goes onto this plane and then makes his way to Anison's business. I believe Sam had gone on to give Nicholas these papers to, of course, fire Anison, and gave him this whole certain like package of of this and that, whatever have you. But it seems that Nicholas is to have had a briefcase that cannot be opened. So we're gonna have a little bit of a problem with that. But anyways, so Nicholas makes his way to Anison, and the two of them are talking, and it seems that Anison is to be well aware of Nicholas's father, as they have had some a little bit of history, and Anison goes on to bring that up to Nicholas, and like the guy even asks him, it's like, well, hey, just give me another quarter, and we'll be fine, and Nicholas is like, well, like and Nicholas is like, no, 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 like today is what counts, Anison. So we have Nicholas that goes on and gives Anison this firing, and he's going to give him this severage package, this firing package. That's like, well, hey, you have X number of days, you can get paid, and then like it's like the 90-day no complete clause to a lot of athletes. So as Nicholas to go on and try to open up this briefcase, he realizes that he can't. So he's like, "Well, you're gonna go on. You're gonna speak to my lawyer. You're gonna speak to Sam because, fortunately for you, this is your lucky day." So since Nicholas cannot seem to go on and open up this briefcase, Nicholas assumes that this key that he had just recently gotten is to open up this briefcase, and it's not. So we have Nicholas making his way back from the airport to or airplane to then airport. Nicholas goes on to take this briefcase and is beating the crap out of it. He is really just going on and swinging this thing, trying to get it open, and it will not open. So Nicholas goes on to make his way to this diner, and it seems that again Nicholas had made a dinner arrangement with Conrad, his brother, and it seems that he hasn't showed yet. So as Nicholas goes on and gets up, he all of a sudden is to be thrusted with this tray of items. And Nicholas is to go on and state that this is not the first time that this woman has gone on to do this to him. And so it seems that they have had some kind of consistent times where the two of them have been together. This is just not a very brand new occurrence. So and here's where Christine is like, well, I've been having a really bad day. And Nicholas is like, well, you've been having a really bad week. So eventually the major D here kind of interrupts and is to pull Christine aside. And here's where the major D goes on and is to talk to Christine, and eventually this leads to her firing. And the major D tells her like, yeah, clean out your locker. And so Christine goes on and she leaves, and we have the major D that goes on and sets up Nicholas to go into a completely different table, and is like, "Oh yeah, I'll comp your meal and everything like that. I'll suck you off if you want to." And then so the major D leaves. So we have at one point where a piece of paper falls to Nicholas here, and there is a note that is to be written on a piece of paper that he really has to go on and he needs to follow this girl that he had just had someone fire, um or he has to go and follow the girl that he just got fired, this waitress. So and Nicholas has no idea what exactly that means. So Nicholas goes on, reads this letter, follows this girl, and is say, "Pardon me, miss. I don't know how this works, but do you have something for me? Like, I just received this note," and we have Christine who turns to Nick is like, "Well, I don't know what you're babbling about, psycho." Uh, so Christine says that this is her second job for this month, and now that she's gonna go on and be in an unemployment. So as Nicholas further follows Christine because he still wants some kind of answer from her, he stumbles upon this bit of hole in the ground and he gets his shoes all wet. So, like, yeah, this guy is a walking, just like, hit him with something here. So, Nicholas is trying to desperately go on and apologize to said woman, and all of a sudden, Nicholas finds that Christine is jumping to try and rescue a man who it seems is turning blue and has problems breathing. So Christine is going on and trying to open up the pathways of this guy so he can breathe. And like at one point, like we just have Nicholas, who's just very disgusted by this girl, just kind of just drilling her hand in this guy's mouth. And like it seems that this woman is to be some kind of like paramedic or something. Like it seems that she knows her stuff. So Christine is trying to keep this guy alive, and so Christine turns to Nicholas like, well, hey, like, call for help. So Nicholas goes on and tries to reach the 911 the 911 service, but then is to find this cop car, and so he waves them down. So this ambulance goes on to need to have both Nicholas and Christine to fill out all this paperwork because they had been with this guy, and they also want the two of them to make their way to the hospital with this guy. And they're like, dude, I've never met this guy before in my life. But they're like, well, you have to go anyways because you're the only people that can fill out these forms. So Christine and Nicholas make their way reluctantly into this ambulance, and the ambulance drives off. So the note says, "Don't let her get away," is to be what was written on the note, for those of you that didn't know. So eventually, when we make our way to these people taking this person to this hospital, all of a sudden everything goes black and people scatter and disappear. And that is when Nicholas realizes, oh, this wasn't just some random happening, it was the game. So the two of them are looking fairly confused. And Nicholas goes on to explain to Christine, it's like, oh, like, Nicholas explains to Christine, it's like, well, yeah, this is what I was trying to explain to you. This is the game that I'm involved in. And Nicholas says, like, well, it's a company and it's some elaborate prank of some kind. And Nicholas states to Christine, it's like, well, I don't even really understand it myself, but I somehow got involved in this. So the two of them go on and they start realizing, like, well, hey, let's try and find a flashlight. Let's try to find something that we can kind of make our way out of here because we need to eventually make our way out of here anyways. So Christine starts to make her way to try to get out of this place. And Nicholas is like, well, are you sure that's where we should be going? And Nicholas is, or Christine is like, I don't know where we're going. So eventually the two of them go on to realize, as they further make their way through this seemingly parking lot like area, all of a sudden this elevator opens and they're like, well, like, I guess we have to go through there. So the two of them go on and make their way into this elevator, which I'm like, I don't think I would ever trust an elevator, but that's just me. And so eventually at some point the elevator does go on to have Nicholas figure out what that key was for. As Nicholas goes on to put the key into the elevator, and the elevator stops or starts. Because Nicholas goes on and pushes all the buttons, nothing happens. They go on and they open up uh, the phone door so they can grab this phone, and the phone's not there. So Nicholas turns the key, the elevator starts to go, and Nicholas goes on to explain to Christine, yeah, I found a wooden clown at my house. And Christine goes on like, yeah, never mind if you going on and explaining all this because it won't make any sense to me. So, yeah, Plus, also, Christine is very weird about how bizarrely Nicholas is to have a specific key for this elevator. So, and he explains how he had gotten the key. And then Christine is like, yeah, never mind. So, all of a sudden, the elevator shuts off, and Christine is like, well, hey, I can't take this anymore. Or want them go on and say they can't take this anymore. So, they go on and they look at the very top of the elevator, and they realize that they may have to go on and climb out of the elevator shaft to escape this. And Nicholas is like, no, I don't think we're gonna have to actually go on and do that now, will we? And it's like, yeah, that's what exactly they'll have to do. So Nicholas is to go on and want to try and get Christine to go first, as he's well, hey, I'll go on and I'll give you a way to like jump up there so you can get up there first. And Christine is like, no, you won't. And Nicholas is like, well, why not? Like, if anything, it'll probably be the best way for you to kind of get up there, and then I'll get up there. And then Christine is like, no, like, you're not going to go on and do this to me because I don't have underwear on. And Nicholas is like, oh, okay, all right. So Nicholas goes on to climb up there himself, and then he grabs a hand for Christine to kind of lift her up. So the two of them are now going on to make their way into figuring out how to open up these elevator shafts so they can go on and escape. It was kind of funny how Nicholas goes on, gives Christine this one hand that has all this grease on it, and she's like, oh, no, no, no. And so gives her the other cleaner hand, and so she grabs onto that. But anyways, so they come to find, as they make their way uh, within this building, that it's not a hospital whatsoever. It's right back to the CRS building. And so, like, wait a minute, like, how is it right back to this building? And so, all of a sudden, also, as they're making their way through this building, all of a sudden these alarms go off, and they get scared by these alarms. So, both Nicholas and Christine start running out of the building. I believe this is here where the CRS starts chasing after them with these uh, security guards that looks like cops. So these security guards have these dogs with them to try to chase after these people. And we get to a point where both Nicholas and Christine have to just jump onto this building to avoid this dog attacking them. And at one point, the dog does grab Nicholas's leg and starts ripping away, but it seems that he's fine. So now both Christine and Nicholas are on top of this building, and they're trying to get away from these dogs that are barking heavily. So Nicholas and Christine make their way to this other side of this building, and they see this fire escape. So they're thinking, oh yeah, we can just go on and take this ladder and just push it down, and here's where we're gonna escape from this fire escape. Oh yeah, nah, that's not gonna happen. As they go on and they thrust this ladder down from this fire escape, all of a sudden this ladder comes flying down, and there's to be a number of people that are kind of looking to be like, hey, what the heck happened here? So we have at one point where Christine notices that if they just go on and they grab this item and they kind of just swing off of it, that they could probably drop onto these dumpsters and be fine. So that's what Christine goes on and does. So all of a sudden, there seems to be a lot more men that pop out of this building and are looking from the ground up, and Christine is to be looking down at these people like, hey, what are they all looking at? And then she's like, oh yeah, like my dress. And so she starts to adjust herself, and then she falls. Nicholas goes on and follows Christine and falls with her. So the two of them are in dumpsters, and they walk their way back to Nicholas's place. So we have a cop at one point that is to be pausing and is asking Christine if she's all right, and Christine's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So they make their way back to Nicholas's place, and so Nicholas goes on to tell Christine, "It's like, well, yeah, I probably have like a sweater or something for you to wear." And so Christine goes on to tell Nicholas that uh, that she wants to go on and like take a shower if that's okay, because of course she was just in a dumpster. And Christine goes on and just takes off her shirt, and and she's in full bra, and Nicholas allows her to go on and just wash up here. So after Christine goes on and gets all cleaned up here, Nicholas calls for Christine to get a cab. And so Christine pokes her head out and tells Nicholas that she had gone on and been offered $400 to spill drinks all over Nicholas. And Nicholas like, oh, well, really? And Christine's response is, oh, you mean the guy in the gray flannel? Uh, the attractive guy in the gray flannel? And then Christine drives off, and then Nicholas is like, ah, she's into me. So the following day, Nicholas ends up getting a wake up call from Marie, and it's 11 o'clock. So Nicholas is going on and talking about his briefcase that had gotten lost, and so he's hoping that his secretary will go on and find it because he had left it in this elevator shaft. And that it seems that also that there had been some reservation in some hotel room from the Ritz-Carlton, and that uh, Nicholas is to come to find out that he is to have lost a card that was to be charged into this room. And so Nicholas is like, all right, okay, let me go on and realize that this is to be part of this game and I have to figure this all out. So Nicholas goes on to make his way to this hotel. And Nicholas asks this guy at the front desk, like, have I seen you before? And the guy's like, well, I don't believe so. So, like, I'm kind of curious if we have probably seen him before, and I just didn't put two and two together in this aspect of the movie. Like, oh yeah, he was so and so earlier part of the movie, and I had no recollection of that because I was trying to think of it of myself of like, well, did I see him at some point earlier on in this movie? Because there's so many people in this film that it just kind of becomes quickly forgettable. So, as Nicholas made his way into this hotel, he ended up getting bumped by this guy. And so as Nicholas is to come to find out that he has this room, and he asks for the key for it, and it's like, well, didn't you get the key yourself? Nicholas goes on to realize, oh yeah, I do have the key because it's on me because the guy that bumped me put this key card into my blazer. So Nicholas makes his way into this room and is to come to find out that there are so many controversial tapes that are to be available on there. That there is to be Nicholas's briefcase there, and it has all of these scandalous photos, and is to have a bit of cocaine that is to be spotted here. That will be a big no-no for Nicholas to be scrambling, as it seems that housekeeping is made its way to try and service Nicholas's room. The housekeeping tries to get into the room, and Nicholas closes the door and tells them to come back later. So Nicholas goes on and takes this huge mirror of these drugs and tries to put them as best as he can in the sink. He had also cut his hand, so he puts this toilet paper around his finger and then goes on to try to flush some of the tissue away, and the toilet overflows. Of course it does. So Nick tries to get rid of all the evidence except for the photos, which he tosses into his briefcase and then takes the briefcase, hoping that any number of these photos will have some kind of connection to some kind of clue of what he'll need later. Plus, also, in one of the pictures, there is to be pictured a woman that has this red bra, and Nick is to go on and assume that this may have at first some connection with Anderson trying to blackmail him or trying to make him look bad. But then he'll go on and get some egg on his face with that. But then Nicholas will turn around and probably accuse Christine for going on and being a woman in these photos because she is to have been shown to him be wearing a red bra, and in these photos a woman is being wearing a red bra, so he's kind of connecting the dots here as if it's not just coincidence. So Nicholas finds out that he's being followed. There's so much freaking going on in this film. And so as Nicholas is to start to notice that there is a car that is consistently going in the same pattern he is, Nicholas decides upon himself, you know what, I'm going to go into this dark alley and see what this guy is following me is up to. So we find out as Nicholas is to get to this guy's car who exactly he is, and that he has pictures of him and so on and so forth. And so this guy goes on and explains to him that he's some private investigator. I would have honestly liked if the private investigator would have actually had some actual ties with Nicholas in his actual life, and I hope that the private investigator wasn't to have been tied to the game, but it seems that the private investigator was tied to the game. So, because we'll see him later on within the film, where we end up seeing who all was actually attached to the game within this lunchroom, that goes on to even explain that the most minute random bit of a person was actually tied to the game somehow, which makes this really very fascinating, this big reveal. So we have Nicholas that goes on and rips away the gun from this private investigator and holds it on him, and the private investigator, of course, runs away here. So Nicholas is to try to go on and ask who hired this private investigator, but there is no real answer here because there's no real answer to give. So Nicholas goes on to call Maria to try and get a hold of Sam here. And so here is where Nicholas makes his way to Aniston. He thrusts these photos at Aniston, accuses him of having some involvement with what had transpired within this hotel. And so Aniston comes clean and has absolutely no involvement of what um, of really what Nicholas is talking about. And then Nicholas is going like, well, like this is to look really bad. But also Aniston is to go on and explain to Nicholas that he had just accepted Sam's settlement and is to go on and is to try sailing. And oddly, we keep having Aniston that is to really tell Nicholas here how thankful and how very appreciative he is of him. And regardless of the misunderstandings that they are to really just have right here and now. So Nicholas goes on to say, it's like, well, please accept my misguided, and so Nicholas goes on to speak with Sam, and Sam asks Nicholas, well, like, how concerned should I be? And Nicholas is like, well, it's all just a misunderstanding. It's like, oh, yeah, sure, yeah. So Sam goes through the photos and states that, well, hey, these photos seem to look a lot like you, and Nicholas is like, well, yeah, we should see what they do on the nightly news. So Nicholas goes on and tells Sam to look into the consumer recreational services. And here's where we get the joke where Sam is like, well, it sounds like they make tennis rackets. And Nicholas states that they gave him a waiver of some kind. So Nicholas goes on, looks into his briefcase to find this huge envelope, this huge black envelope. And Nicholas hands Sam this pink paper that Sam looks at, and it's completely blank. And Sam then goes on, or Nicholas then goes on to realize that, like, oh, like, the whole paper is invisible ink. And Sam's like, really? Like, come on. So, and Nicholas is like, well, yeah, I'm dealing with depraved children. And so Sam is asking Nicholas, well, like, hey, do I have to worry about this? And Nicholas is like, well, you don't have to worry, I promise. So the two of them leave, so Sam leaves, and so Nicholas goes on to have Maria look into the young woman named Christine, and has her look into this via the taxi company of which that he had gone on, and had her be given a taxi ride from, to figure out where that taxi driver had gone on to have this woman be taken to, so that way Nicholas can find her again and talk to her some more to figure things out. So here is where Nicholas goes on to make his way back into his own home. And is to simply find out that his house has been ransacked. And when Nicholas is to be unsure about his own home, he thrusts out a gun and is to yell out, "I have a gun!" And I'm like, man, what is he going to do if he accidentally shoots somebody or kills somebody? So Nicholas goes on and turns on all of these black lights. And there's to be all this graffiti that goes on to say "Welcome home." It says "Don't cry, pretty boy." It ends up saying his name and this and that, whatever have you. Just these random bits of stuff here. So we also have the wooden clown that has a little bit of paper that Nicholas rips from out of the clown's mouth, the wooden clown's mouth. And the note reads, "Like my father before me, I choose eternal sleep." So, stating that, I guess that Nicholas is probably going to die from all these things occurring. So, Nicholas goes on to make his way to Ilsa, his servicewoman, and goes on to tell her, "Hey, don't go into the house. It seems that there was a break in." And so uh, we go on to have Nicholas that is to go on and call the police, and he gives him his address and he tells him like, "Yeah, it's the biggest house in the street. You'll never miss it." So Nicholas also goes on to set his alarm, and so we have at a point where Nicholas completely forgets about calling the cops, and instead all of a sudden he ends up seeing his brother appear, and so the two of them just go on this road trip together. They just start driving, and Conrad is to go on and explain to Nicholas how the game seemingly will never stop. And Conrad had given away all of his money and paid their bill, and like it just won't go away. And how Nicholas has gone on, or Conrad has turned into a human pinata, and and Conrad is to pay them even more to make everything stop, and they won't stop anyways. They'll just keep going. So we all of a sudden have the car being stopped because of a flat tire, and immediately Conrad is like, they did this," and Nicholas is like, "Come on, it's just a flat tire." So Nicholas goes on to make his way to his trunk to find his spare tire, and Nicholas tells Conrad to look at the glove compartment. Conrad opens the glove compartment to find a huge number of keys there that all has the CSR logo. Conrad grabs all the keys and eventually uh, realizes that that Nicholas is supposedly entangled with the CSR. Like, "You're with them, you're working with them," and Nicholas is like, "No, no, no, that's not what this is about. It's just a misunderstanding." And so Conrad goes on and takes all these keys and thrusts them at Nicholas's face, and then runs off, not knowing exactly who to trust. So as Conrad runs off here, we get to a real true moment between brother and brother where they go on and have Conrad throw shade to Nicholas as well. "It kills you that I'm living my life." Um, and that you're afraid somebody's gonna uh, witness the scene and so on and so forth. And I'm just saying words at this point. So, uh, because Nicholas wants to go on, I'm like, "Hey man, like kind of just lower your tone." And of course, we again have Conrad that does not care. So but if anything, also Conrad is to throw shade about having Nicholas as a manipulative control freak, and that Conrad is sorry that he doesn't live up to Nicholas's expectations. So, and that he'll never be Nicholas, and it's simply because he doesn't want to be Nicholas. And so, but also Conrad is to throw shade at Nicholas, like, well, hey, I'm your brother, and all I ever tried to do was help you, and so on. And so, yeah, so, uh, Nicholas goes on and tells Conrad that it's like, hey, all I ever did was try to help you. And Conrad is like, well, no one ever asked you to play dad. And Nicholas is like, well, did I ever have a choice? So here's where Conrad starts to run away and Nicholas is following him. Eventually, Nicholas will go on and find that Conrad is to disappear, but then all of a sudden, all of these telephones start ringing off the handle from any number of locations that are nearby. Nicholas goes on and is to eventually grab one of these said phones and have it be repeating back to him everything that he just screamed at Conrad. I guess having people go on and explain to him, it's like, well, yeah, we're watching you. So Nicholas briefly goes on to make his way back to his car, realizing that there's not much he can go on and really do there, and instead decides to get a taxi. Coincidentally, Nicholas will go on and find that this one taxi is to have the California regional um, settles settings, whatever that means. So immediately it says CRS on it, and so as Nicholas realizes it, he's like, "Oh man, this taxi's involved the CRS." Like, all right, well, like, what's gonna happen now? So this taxi is driving all over the place, wild, crazy, and what have you. And Nicholas begs this taxi driver, hey, whatever these guys are paying you, I'll double it. And the guy laughs. And so what ends up happening here is that the taxi driver decides to careen this uh, taxi to splash into this water. The taxi driver, of course, is to jump out of the taxi before all this is to actually transpire. But so Nicholas goes careening into this water, and water starts to come in on all sides. So, coincidentally, during the journey of Nicholas, Nicholas comes to find a handle for a window for a car. And Nicholas did not go on and quite understand what this whole thing was. He kind of just plays it with it for a second. It's like, I have no idea what this is. Come to find out, Nicholas figures out that it's to having him being able to roll this window down so he can escape this taxi. So Nicholas goes on and escapes said taxi and survives. And eventually, the following day, since Nicholas had gone on and almost been killed, had almost been drowned, here's where Nicholas comes in with Sam and these detectives to investigate the CRS because he's like, okay, like this is far more than enough that I could take against these people. So Sam meets up with this detective, Tim Foley, and they make their way up this certain 14th floor. And as this elevator opens, they come to find out that this entire building is ghosted, disappeared, is to go on and be a shred of its former self. So we don't quite know if this is because that they went down the wrong floor, or that these people are to go on and to have these certain presentations done in these certain buildings and then they move on. Who knows? But anyways, so we have Nicholas that is to go on and talk to these detectives because logically, there is nobody that they can actually talk to through the CRS. So Nicholas goes on and thoroughly explains to these detectives what all he's gone through, these um, attempted murders and so on and so forth, the list of all of these crimes. But it seems that there's not exactly much of anything that they can actually go on and do because there's no one here to arrest. And so also the paint that these people had gone on and painted Nicholas's house with, this vandalism, yeah, like the paint is even illegal to have. But for some reason, these people have gotten to get this illegal paint. So, so the detectives go on and tell Nicholas that all of this that is to be sacked against these people, it's all pending, and so we also have the detective that states to Nicholas, well, like you hire these people to do this service for you, so that's the kind of the real problem that we have here. And Sam goes on and states like, well, that's kind of irrelevant. So plus also the people have no motive for reason for why these people have it out for him. So Nicholas makes his way back home and talks to Ilsa about mostly about his father. It seems it seems to come up quite a lot, and like Ilsa talks about like, well, yeah, your mother and father love you very much, and and that your father was to be worked too hard, and that supposedly Nicholas's father's manner was just very slight, and so on and so forth. So and that nobody really expected Nicholas's father to give his own life the way he did, and but if anything, Nicholas's mother did worry about his father. So Nicholas does go on and figure out what had happened with that taxi and Christine and where the address was to lead Nicholas to find back where Christine is. So Nicholas goes on and seeks out Christine's location. So Nicholas goes on to knock at this door to be introduced to a woman named Amy, who will go on and think that she is not to be involved in this game, but we'll see her a little bit later. So Nicholas goes on to meet with a girl named Amy, who is like, "Well, hey, what are you here for?" And Nicholas is like, "Oh, I'm looking for Christine. Is she here?" And so Christine pops her head out, like, "Oh yeah, like what are you doing here?" Uh, and Nicholas asks Christine, he's like, "Well, can we talk?" And Christine's like, "Sure." So Christine and Nicholas talk here. And Christine's like, "Yeah, I never thought I was gonna see you again," and we have Nicholas that goes on to show Christine the photos, and is to ask her, it's like, "Well, hey, can you tell me anything about these?" And even to the point where Nicholas asks, is like, "Well, are either one of these you?" And Nicholas states that this was in my hotel room, and Nicholas asks the woman, it's like, "Well, are you trying to tell me that neither one of these are you?" And Christine, it's like, "Well, what makes you think that?" And Nicholas says, like, "Well, like she's wearing a red bra in the photos. You wore a red bra as I saw it, so so yeah, this woman is to not be the same woman that is to be in the photos." So at this point, Nicholas is to just kind of be distraught, and he's like, "You know what? Can I just sit down for a moment?" And Christine is like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "You're not all right, are you?" And Christine is like, "Are you still involved in that contest or whatever this thing is that you're still involved in?" And we have Nicholas is like, "Well, I'm probably being much more of a nuisance to you. I should probably go." And Christine is like, "No, it's okay. Like we can talk." And so Christine is like, "Well, let me put on some clothes and I'll be right back." So Nicholas goes on and asks for some aspirin, and then starts to notice things in the room that just don't quite match up. Nicholas goes on and finds a certain uh, item that, like, the head isn't attached to the body. Nicholas all of a sudden notices that there is a price tag within the lamp that seems to be starting to burn. Nick takes the price tag from off of the lamp, or otherwise it's going to burn and start a fire. So, because Nick had gone on to then burn his hands, he decides to make his way to the sink, so that way he can pour his hands over some, of course, sink water. And as Nick goes on and turns the sink on, nothing comes on. There's no water. And so Nick is like, "Okay, that's weird." So Nick goes into the refrigerator. The refrigerator's empty. That's weird also. Nick makes his way to these bookshelves to go on and find that there's no books whatsoever. All the books are actually just to be fake. And then lastly, Nick makes his way to this picture frame and is to look inside of it to then realize that it's just a clipping from some magazine. So Nick starts to put together that every bit of supposedly Christine's life is a ruse, it's fake. And Nick goes on to call Christine out on this because he realizes that Christine is a part of this. So Nicholas goes on to ask Christine, it's like, "Hey, are you familiar with this photo?" And I think Christine says that it was her quinceañera or something like that. And And that, of course, is, I believe, the point for, I think, people can correct me about this, when someone is to go on and turn 16 and become of age and they have this party. Um, and I don't want to say it's a certain culture of a thing, but yeah, like that also is to be. I'm not even sure if that is to actually be the right thing that happened in this film. But anyways, so Nicholas goes on to say to Christine, it's like, well, okay, so this is a legitimate photo, right? How about you go on and take it out of the frame for me? And so this is, of course, where Christine turns to Nick and says, "They're watching." And Nicholas is like, "What?" And Christine is like, "Not here. They're watching." So they can see and hear us. Look at the smoke detector. And Nicholas is like, yeah, it must be that. So Christine is trying to get them out of this place and go for a drive or something. And Nicholas at this point is exhausted. He's tired of all this. And he's like, you know what? Like, if you guys want to come get me, come out. Like, come on. Like, so eventually gets to the point where Nicholas goes on and breaks the smoke detector. And here's where the CSR guys comes out of this van with all these guns blazing. And Christine's like, well, now you've done it. So the guys come out of these vans with these huge guns. And we have Nicholas who's kind of looking out the window, seeing all these guys coming near to the place. And Christine tells Nicholas to get away from the window. It's like, well, what's going to happen? All of a sudden, these guns start blasting into the place. They all duck for cover. And so they're scrambling to get out of this place. And they're luckily to have taken the back way out of here. Because I guess the guys weren't looking for the back way out of there. Because of course they weren't. Because they have to just keep this game alive. Amy, the other person that's connected to this building, is like, what the fuck? Like, because she has no idea what's going on, even though she does have an idea what's going on. So, Nick and Christine Hyde, as one of the CSR guys, starts to look around to try to find them, and he can't. And so, Christine and Nick, they get the heck out of there. They get into a car, they drive away, and a van is chasing after them. The van cannot go on and get into certain avenues that this car is, so eventually the van gets stuck and the car drives away. So we get to a point where, of course, Nicholas cannot trust Christine and he wants to get her out of the car, but then goes on to realize that if he doesn't have her, he can't figure out more of this game or he can't figure things out more. And he kind of needs her as a way to help him. So he goes on to realize that he needs, of course, Christine. So Nick goes on and is to have the two of them make their way to what I believe is to be just some cabin or some quaint place. And we have Christine that tells Nicholas that he should be worried that his accounts are all gone. And so Nicholas goes on and starts calling his 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 foreign bank account, his Swiss bank account or something. And he finds out from the Swiss bank account that all of his accounts are gone. Oh no. And then he turns around and then calls Sam, and then Sam tells him the exact opposite. So it's like, who can he believe? But when eventually that happens, that's where further things start to turn. So Nicholas goes to this gas station and is trying to call these detectives and Sam, and saying that he'll go on and get Christine to testify about all this, and so like that'll be the way that they'll get these guys. Christine had tried to use Nicholas's car, but it was declined, so she used her own money. So it's like, okay, good. So Sam also, I believe, is to call his brother and tells him to be safe and this and that, and so we have Nicholas and both Christine that make their way to this cabin. And so here, like the big meat and potatoes that come into this whole thing is that we have at a point where when uh, Sam calls Nicholas about the accounts, and all the counts are fine. That's when Christine tells Nicholas is like, they got to him, and Nicholas is like, hey, this is a guy. He's my best friend. He's the guy that I trust most. Like, and you're telling me they got to him, and Nicholas doesn't know what to believe anymore. And plus, also, he's getting a little tipsy because come to find out, the drink that Christine had made for Nicholas had been drugged. So Nicholas goes on and ends up starting to fall over, and Christine goes on to explain to Nicholas, is like, yeah, I've been working for them, and we took all your accounts and this and that, and all we needed was to do was just to incept one of your phone calls to get your account information, and that's all we needed to do, to just drain you dry. Ha ha ha. So the next thing we see when Nicholas is to wake up is that he's in a coffin in Mexico somewhere. So Nicholas makes his way out of this coffin at this graveyard and starts to make his way into just kind of wiping his face full of blood, and decides to make his way to the American Embassy. The American Embassy guy goes on and notices that this guy is like, well, you don't have a passport, you don't have a ID, you don't have nothing. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be kind of tricky trying to get you back over the border. But then the guy notices that Nicholas does have a really fancy watch that is to be the only thing left to his person. And he goes on and tells him, like, well, that could probably get you back over the border. So, as Nicholas comes to find that this watch has sentimental value to him, and that there is a inscription on the back of it that goes on to state, on your 18th birthday, your father's watch, love, mother. So Nicholas goes on and pawns his watch off so he can eat some tacos, and then makes his way onto a bus so he can get out of the country. So Nicholas makes his way to this coffee shop, only having like not even barely $20 to his name, and makes his way into this coffee shop and has to have everybody pause for a second and explains, hey, I only have like $18.78. Can anybody give me a ride to San Francisco? And the next thing we see is that a driver is willing to have Nicholas kind of sit in one of the seats and make his way back to San Francisco from this Baskin Robbins truck. Maybe a sponsor, maybe not. So Nicholas makes his way back to his own house to find that his house has a notice of publication on it, whatever that means. Maybe an eviction thing? I don't know what the heck this means. So Nicholas goes on and climbs his own fence because he has a gated mansion. So Nicholas goes on and has to break into his own place to find a book to get a shower and then to find whatever is left of money so he can, uh, of course, make a taxi ride. Uh, so that way he can try and go on and make his way to his brother's room. So we'll go on to have Nicholas find out that his brother had did some significant damages to the room, as well as also there are suspicions of what had actually happened to Conrad. And so but the guy goes on to kind of set Nicholas aside here and is telling of course, about Conrad's behavior and everything along those and the damages, and that this guy had also had a nervous breakdown, and the police took him. So, uh, so this guy goes on and gives Nicholas all this bit of information. So here's where Nicholas goes on and re-meets up with Elizabeth, that is conveniently kind of waving away at this car, and then Elizabeth is to go on and spot Nicholas, and then the two of them are having this meal together. Elizabeth is going on and saying to Nicholas, like, well, hey, like, do you need any food? Do you need any, like, come on, like, go on and eat up. So, and again, like, Elizabeth is like the nicest woman to, or Elizabeth is the nicest woman to Nicholas here, even though the two of them have broken up. So, here is where Nicholas goes on to tell Elizabeth that he completely understands why she had left him, and he also is to go on and in desperation need her car. So we have at one point where they are to be handed things that they ended up ordering, and here's where we get the unopened bottle of water, where Nicholas is to go on and tell this waitress, "Hey, do not give me a seemingly opened bottle of water. Like I want one that I have to kind of open myself because I don't trust anybody." So we have Elizabeth that is just kind of like, "Are you okay?" like talk to me, Nicholas. What's going on? You're scaring me. So here's where Nicholas goes on and wants to apologize to Elizabeth because he realizes that he had shut her out and that he wasn't really there for her, and he hopes that she will go on and forgive him. And Elizabeth is like, well, there's nothing to forgive. And so all of a sudden, we have Nicholas that is going on and watching on the telly, the TV screen, that there is a migraine commercial that Nicholas rushes to. He's like, oh my god, they got to me, even here. How could they have? And so Nicholas goes on and understands that the guy that had been the one who was to have put together Nicholas's uh thing, his whole screening thing to get into this game thing, that guy was just some actor who was doing some role, and Nicholas is to go on and figure this out and be like, aha. So Nicholas is like, well, if he's a TV actor, then there's probably a way to find him out, to figure out how I can go on and reach out to him. And then reaching out to him will go on and lend him to try to find this company again and uh, make his way back to Christine and be like, aha, gotcha. So we have Nicholas that goes on and rips out the yellow papers, and he is to make his way to the Moon Cafe, the restaurant that this actor had gone on to get his meal X number of days ago. So, oddly enough, as soon as Nicholas is going to make his way into this restaurant to find out about this possible actor, all of a sudden there's to be this guy who brings this weapon to Nicholas's throat and says, "Hey, get out of your car, buddy! I'm stealing it." And we have Nicholas who's like, "Well, I am extremely fragile right now," and he goes on and hands um, a gun to be near this guy, and then the guy runs away. So he hands the guy the gun, but he is like, "Hey," scares him. So Nicholas goes on to make his way to this restaurant and come to find out that this actor is to have left his uh, picture on the wall and he signed it. And so it's like, all right, now I know what his real name is. So Nicholas goes on and makes all kinds of phone calls trying to get auditions for this guy. It's all a ruse, but if anything, it's to try to just get uh, to figure out where this guy is. So at some point when Nicholas gets in touch with the people that know this actor, it's like, well, where is this actor now? I want to go on and give him an audition. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, that's seemingly unable for you to go on and be able to do that because he had taken his kids to the zoo. And that's where Nicholas is like, aha, I'll figure out what zoo it is and I'll track him down. So Nicholas goes on and makes his way to the zoo and finds Feingold or Fiendgold. So I'm gonna go with Feingold because that's what I just keep going with, regardless of how it's probably to actually be pronounced in this movie. So Nicholas finds this guy. It's like aha, so Fiendgold turns to Nicholas. Is like, I have kids. And Nicholas is like, well, hey, get rid of them. So Fingo goes on and has his kids kind of go off and go off to so that way they can have a bit of a chat. So uh, he gives his kids snacks and lets them go on their own. So Feingold tells or Feingold tells Nicholas here, it's like, well, it was just a job, nothing personal. You know, I mean, I played my part. Uh, and so he's like, well, yeah, I improvise. It's what I'm good at. And so Nicholas tells Feingold, it's like, well, you need to bring me to who's in charge. And Feingold is like, well, nobody knows who's in charge. Nobody really gets the big picture. And And so Nicholas is like, well, I don't care. I want to find out where these people are. And so Feingold explains, it's like, well, they own the whole business. They just kind of move from floor to floor. And so Nicholas is like, I don't care. You can get me in. You can figure it out. And Feingold is like, no, I can't. He's like, yes, you can. So the further and further that, like, the further and further we go about this, Feingold says that this is very dangerous. And here's where we go on. And we have Nicholas that states, I am a very extremely dangerous man. And that, like, no F's are kind of given with Nicholas right now. That it's like, I'm going to find these people. So Nicholas pushes Feingold to leave the zoo with his kids and then drives him to where this business is. And so Nicholas is to go on and be hiding in the back as this guy goes on and makes his way into this building. And we have Feingold that states to the security guards, like, well, hey, you're not really allowed to be here. And Feingold lies, like, well, I'm here for a fitting. And so Nicholas thrusts this gun into the security guard's face to then have the two of them make their way into this elevator. And they go on and ask what floor. So they make the way up the elevator, and further they go on and they make their way to this weird cafeteria where we see all the people that has gone on to at some point been involved within this film. So even Amy in the background, we see her, the girl that was to be the one who was to have met Nicholas before Christine was to be like, oh, hey, yeah, like, come on and bring him in. So Nicholas starts to make his way through the cafeteria. The private eye investor guy sees Nicholas and starts freaking out and runs off. Nicholas even spots the two member guys that he had seen at that place or at that club days before. So, and then Nicholas spots Christine and he's like, aha, like, that's where I'm heading to. That's the person that I know could have real legitimate answers. So Nicholas gets further and further to Christine as Christine then spots Nicholas, is like, as she stands up. And Nicholas tells Christine, it's like, well, hey, I'm back from the dead. And so Christine tells Nicholas that you're not going to shoot anybody. And Nicholas tells Christine that you're going to come with me. There are some guys with CRS that have guns, these security guards that have these guns out. And Nicholas is taking Christine for hostage. And at some point, guns start to be blazing. And some rando people start to get killed or shot or what have you, supposedly. So Nicholas and Christine start to make their way through the building as the security guards start following them. Nicholas and Christine bizarrely just decide to make their way to the very tippy top of this building, to the rooftop of it. And so here's where we're almost to the ending, folks. We've almost made it, thank God. So we're almost there. We're almost there to the end here. So both Nicholas and Christine have this long-winded bit of a conversation here, which really just leads to Christine realizing that Nicholas does have a legitimate gun, and that Christine is kind of very concerned that Nicholas will go on and kill somebody because they had gone on to check supposedly all of his guns to make sure that um, they were all to not be loaded or whatever, something or other. But Nicholas is like, well, I have this gun, so it's like this one's loaded, this one's okay. So anyway, so the more important bits of this conversation here is for eventually Christine to tell Nicholas the truth that supposedly they have gone on to plan this birthday party for Nicholas. That really that's what the people are trying to smash through this door to get to Nicholas to surprise him with this birthday party. And Nicholas doesn't believe it. He's like, no, 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 no. Like, that's not really what's going on. So Nicholas is to say, it's like, well, hey, people were just shot. Like, people were killed. And Christine is like, no, 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 no. Like, that was all fake. That was all squibs. That was all like movies, right? How you go on and have the fake blood and whatever. So, kind of very much meta here. But so we have Christine over the walkie explaining to people, hey, he has a real gun. He's going to kill somebody. Uh, and there is to go on and be an ever growing concern of someone going to die here. So as the door finally opens here, and Nicholas, out of fear, just fires, all of a sudden, Conrad with the champagne goes down and he is to be shot in the chest. Feingold and Christine rushes to Conrad's body and they're like, oh my god, we're gonna go to prison for the rest of our lives. This guy is dead. And we, of course, have Nicholas, who is very upset at this point because he just killed his own brother, not knowing what was really going on, and also that this guy has been driven to such madness that really, like, he is to go off onto this building to fall and crash through all of this bit of glass and make his entrance into this X marked spot and have him fall. And so all these guys surround Nicholas and tell him, hey, be very careful here. This is kind of very breakaway glass, but if anything, you can still get very hurt or cut by this. So everybody goes on and starts checking on Nicholas to make sure that he's okay, and they start dragging him away from this class because he had a huge, massive fall here. So Conrad comes out of the shadows. He's completely okay, and he has a shirt that says, I was drugged and left for dead in Mexico, and all I got was this stupid t shirt. So Nicholas turns to Conrad. It's like, hey, what is this? And Conrad tells Nicholas it's his birthday present, and the two of them hug. And Conrad turns to Nicholas and said, I had to do something. You are becoming such an a-hole. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother, Nicholas Van Orton. So everybody starts clapping. Music starts playing. There ends up being the CRS, like celebrating Nicholas's birthday on this piece of paper here. So they planned all this out to a T. knowing how all of it was going to seemingly miraculously all work out the way it will. So we have Feingold that turns to Nicholas and says, "Hey, it's a good thing that you jumped off the building because it was either that or I was going to have to push you off the building. So luckily, you decided to go and do this on your own." So yeah, so all this was all planned out. Nicholas goes on and re-meets up with Elizabeth and explains how he left her car by the zoo. Elizabeth like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. Like we can go on, we can retrieve it. It's okay." So Elizabeth goes on and kisses Nicholas goodbye, and again uh, tells him happy birthday and then leaves. So Nicholas tells Elizabeth, "Hey, I'll call you. I really will," and leaves. So Nicholas goes on and speaks with Sam and Aniston, and so they go on and they jokingly say, "It's like, hey man, you made a really great entrance here," and so Nicholas goes on to explain to Aniston about the whole thing that happened to him days before, and Aniston's like, "Hey, you don't need to say anything. Like, I really do thank you about, and my wife thanks you," and uh, so Aniston goes on and leaves, and so the last thing we see here before we get to Nicholas talking to Christine again is that Connor is going on and having to sign away for the bill, as we randomly find the guy that was in the airport was to be the guy giving Conrad this bill. And so at some point, we have Nicholas that asks Conrad, it's like, "Hey, you want to split it?" And then Nicholas looks at the bill and he's like, "Oof, I don't know about that." So uh, Nicholas goes on and thanks Conrad for doing all this, and and then is to be reminded about Christine, the waitress. What's her name? So we have Nicholas that goes on to re-find Christine making her way to this cab because she needs to go to the airport because she's going to Australia soon to continue on this whole game thing somewhere else. And so Nicholas goes on and it's to state, well, like, I didn't get my chance to say goodbye. And we have Nicholas that goes on and asks, like, "Well, hey, like, I didn't even get what your name really was, your real name was." And Christine says that her real name is actually Claire. And so Nicholas is like, "Well, are you catching a plane or something?" And Christine is like, "Well, yeah, like we're going on and we're doing another one of these in Australia somewhere. So yeah, I kind of gotta leave fairly soon." And Nicholas is like, "Well, hey, like if it's not anything too much, like how about we go on and we catch some dinner sometime when you come back or whatever." And Claire's like, "Well, you don't know much about me," and Nicholas is like, "No, I don't." Um, so so Claire goes on and tells Nicholas where she's from, but even that she doesn't even remember. She says Oklahoma or Colorado, which is like, I've been so many places at this point. So Claire goes on and states to Nicholas, it's like, "Well, hey, how about you and me? How about we share a coffee at the airport before I go on and get this plane?" And then that's how the movie ends with the two of them go into this cab and they drive off to go to the airport. And then the movie ends. So with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Thank you for going on and listening to this. I probably just rattled this whole thing off. wasn't much perspective because there was so much to just unpack here that there was not much to get anything in between all of that because there was just so much going on. And me trying to dissect this was probably more difficult than a lot of other things where I can kind of have some jokes or some banters or whatever because there is a little bit less going on in things, or there's a easier way to just go about talking about. But this one, yeah, there was no way. I was like, God, there's so much going on in this movie. There's so much to dice. Yeah, there was just no way that I could have some jokes or something. But if anything, at least I did as best as I can try to dissect and explain this movie. There were some times where I obviously got into points where I was like, yeah, this wasn't the right way to say this or that or whatever. But like, oh well. Like at least I got this out for today. At least this is going to be another video. Yeah, I really did have a problem trying to go on and do this video the night before because I had certain things kind of getting in the way. Yeah, I just spend hours just trying to find the perfect um, headphones to try to get a better set of headphones so I could have something that is to be better used for watching videos as well as also doing my workouts and whatever. So hopefully I'll go on and I'll have those arrive in a number of days from now, so that will be great. Uh, I hope to eventually go on and still have some kind of resemblance of a regularly scheduled programming of things, but like if I don't get it on the normal day, I'll get it the day after. That I try to cut these things, but yeah, it's kind of getting just kind of on very specific days. There's just stuff that happens, so I'm to just try to my best to just be very consistent. Or there's sometimes where I just tire myself off with doing things, or like just kind of the repetitiveness of doing this like every other day just kind of gets to me, or I just get sick. There's still a point in time where I'm just kind of dealing with some kind of weird, goofy cold of some kind, um, or reasonably to really exhaust myself so much with doing certain exercises and what have you that eventually that'll just lead to me just being freaking exhausted the following day. So I'm just like, man, like doing a video for X number of hours. Ah. Um, but if anything, I'm going to get out of here so I can go on and do uh, my exercises for today. So thank you for going on and listening to this. I really do appreciate it. Plus me ranting on about my day-to-day. Like I'm sure everybody's excited about that. So thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.